everyone. This is Kate.
Hello. This is Ardeshir. I'm the nudist I talked about.
He has a website. What's your website called, Ardeshir?
ArdeshirMehta.com.
Check it out, and also check out Ardeshir Mehta on Quora. He's very popular there.
And you've got to learn how to spell it, and that's Ardeshir. That's my first name. Mehta. That's my last name. And my website is both my first and last name in lowercase letters.com.
Okay, so I found some questions that I thought would be fun and interesting and important to talk about that you've answered on Quora. So, Ardeshir, so what I'm going to do, and viewers at large, this is totally unscripted. Ardeshir has no idea what questions I'm going to ask him, so I'm just going to go ahead and ask the questions. Ardeshir is going to just answer them. And then afterwards, I'll throw in my 2 cents just to show, because Ardeshir and I think so very differently and opposite about a lot of stuff. So I thought it might be fun. Ardeshir Mehta is a life coach, so definitely shoot Ardeshir an email. He's so good at it that he works himself out of jobs because they don't need him, because Ardeshir is that good. So if you need a life coach, Ardeshir Mehta is your man. Okay, so let's get this started. First question. What's something that is generally accepted by society today that you absolutely cannot stand?
That I cannot stand?
Yeah, that you dislike, that you can't stand. Well, the question as asked is, what's something that is generally accepted by society today that you absolutely cannot stand? That's exactly how the person asked the question. So
okay.
You have an answer.
I don't remember what answer I gave, but offhand I would say right now there's nothing that I cannot stand. I'm in favor of everything. Let's put it this way. I don't think the world is broken. I think the world is great as it is, along with its wars, and along with its terrible tragedies, and along with this terrorism, and along with its massive gun shootings and everything. Generally speaking, the world is fantastic. I don't believe there's anything wrong with the world, so there's nothing that I cannot stand. However, I might have had a different opinion a while ago. So, Molly, would you please read back the question?
I will. I'll tell you how you answered. You said quantum theory. That was your answer.
Oh shit! Yes. Yeah, that was tongue in cheek. But on the other hand, yeah, I believe that is. I believe yes. The quantum theory, both quantum theory and the
special theory of relativity
are terribly flawed. But I have given up trying to convince other people of my opinion anyway, because they will believe what they want to believe. And what does it matter to me? It doesn't really matter. As far as quantum theory goes, I don't think there is anything in the world that I have come into contact with that relies upon it, so I'm not really interested in it anymore.
So my personal answer to that question, what's something that is generally accepted by society today that you absolutely cannot stand? The first thing that comes to my mind is religions getting a free pass to discriminate. That's my answer.
Yeah. All right.
So next question.
Yeah.
All right. I'm 17 and my guy friend touched my butt and he started to laugh. Is this behavior normal from a guy friend?
Well, it may be normal because most people are kind of uptight about sex, but it's certainly not uncalled for. I mean, a guy at that age and a girl at that age, they want to touch each other. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with having a bout of touching. Whether clothed or naked, really doesn't matter as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, maybe it's not normal. Maybe it is normal. I don't know. In which society you have to ask, right? I mean, there are societies that are fairly open-minded about the subject, and there are other societies, like in the Far East and in India, that are very close-minded about it.
My personal answer to that question would be, I would say to the 17-year-old girl, it doesn't matter what's normal and not normal. I mean, we can define what's normal. Is it common for extremely horny male teenagers to touch girls without their permission? Yes, that's very common. We can debate if it's normal or not, but I would say to the 17-year-old girl, that's not even important. What's important is how you feel about it. If that touch is unwelcome, my suggestion would be, don't put him in a position where he's going to do that. Maybe he's super horny, maybe he's super sexually frustrated, and you know what? Girl, that's not your problem. You're not obligated to him in any way, shape, or form. So, if maybe it would be better for a while just not to have him in any kind of position where he'll be inappropriate, especially if you value his friendship and if you want to salvage the friendship. If you want to maintain that friendship, don't put him in a position where he's going to be a disappointment, I guess, would be my take on it. And depending on how close a guy friend he is, if he's a really close guy friend and you've been friends for several years, and you think, if you feel safe, have a conversation with him about it and talk about your boundaries and what's appropriate for you. On the other hand, if you really, really like him, then you can have a talk with him about, well, let's talk about sex before we do it and what's right for us and so on and so forth. So I would say it really depends on where you're at and whether you want him touching you or not. Would be my take on that. Next question. What should I do if my ex-girlfriend's friends compare me with her new boyfriend? They told her, your new boyfriend is better than your ex.
Well, I think I remember my original answer to the question, which is to say, become better than anyone else, which is, I think, not terribly bad answer, because after all, once you are self-confident, once you feel that you are better than anyone else, then it doesn't matter what people say about you. I know I'm better than everybody else, so it doesn't matter what people say about me.
My take on it is, if I were in that situation where I had an ex and their friends were all saying, hey, your new relationship is way better than your ex, I would just say, hey, I'm happy they're with someone who's better suited to them. That it was probably a good thing we broke up, given that they found someone who's better suited to them. I would just kind of say, hey, I would just take it like that. Hey, glad you're in a better place with this new relationship, and obviously it was better that we're not together anymore. Basically, I just wouldn't take it seriously. I definitely wouldn't take it to heart, and it could depend on why are they doing it. Who knows? It wouldn't be my job to figure out the motivation of why their friends would be running to me saying, hey, your ex is so much happier now, blah, 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 blah. Like, it's like, you know what? It's not my job to worry about it. We're no longer an item. So glad my ex is happy. And yeah, I think that's just how I would take it.
I would agree with that also. Don't care about what others say about you. Really, whatever the situation, it doesn't matter what others say about you.
I would be, if I would be friendly if I saw the ex again, which I am. I am like that with my exes. I'm very friendly if I happen to see them. I don't worry about it. It's like, I want my exes to be happy, so.
I kind of agree with that.
All right. Next question. If you could do one thing that is illegal without suffering the consequences, what would it be?
Walk around naked in public places and have sex in public places.
That's a great answer. Okay.
Just because it's illegal doesn't make it harmful.
Okay, so
although I remember what I wrote now, I think I said fire a fully automatic rifle at full auto a new fully automatic rifle, because in America you may acquire an old fully automatic rifle, but you may not acquire a newly made one. And in Canada, you may not acquire one at all. And in most other countries, you're not allowed to own one either. So that is also lots of fun, firing fully automatic rifles. In fact, I have a fully automatic BB gun, and it's great fun to fire it at full auto. So I see no reason why it wouldn't be even more fun to fire a fully automatic military-style rifle. But yeah, walking around naked and having sex in public places, I think even trumps that.
That's a fun answer. So what would I do if I could do something illegal and get away with it? I would throw a huge outdoor street party. I would have cases and cases of beer and wine and whiskey, and I'd be passing it all to the neighbors, and I'd say,
and weed.
Rah, rah. Oh yeah, sure, whatever. And absolutely, because marijuana is legal now. The street party's not legal though, especially after 11. And I think you probably have to get a license or permits or whatever. You're not allowed to make noise past 11 o'clock or something like that.
Downhill all the time.
So this is why I would throw a big, huge bash of a street party. It would go all weekend, whatever. We would party till we were all done out, whether it's 12 hours or a day or 2 days or whatever.
Good idea. And take off your clothes as well.
Okay, sure thing. The guests can remove their clothing if they want to. Okay, so that's what I would do if I could do something illegal and get away with it. Well, we have fun answers to that question. Okay, next question. Ooh, this could be delicate. How do you politely tell someone you don't like them?
Very simply, say politely, I don't like you. Simple.
Straightforward and to the point.
See no reason why not.
Have you ever...
On the other hand, let me point out though, I've never been put in that position because I've never disliked anybody.
That's actually what I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you if you ever put in a position where you had to tell someone you don't like.
But
them.
if you wanted to, if it happened that I did dislike somebody, I'd say to them, politely, of course, I don't like you.
If you want to do a more diplomatic way and you think the person has enough social sophistication to figure it out, you could put it like, hey, I wish you a great life. I wish you every happiness, but you and the chemistry is just wrong for a friendship. And, let's be polite and cordial when we meet, but we're not going to be like making plans and hanging out together. I don't know if that's... It might depend on the person you're dealing with, though, because...
It might be that way. On the other hand, a person is not necessarily going to dislike you all the time. Like my late wife, Claire's brother, is a bit of a racist, and when I first met him, he wouldn't even shake my hand. But it didn't let me bother. I didn't let it bother me, and eventually I even got him to smile at me at one point. So,
Yeah, I guess depending on. I know I've had people kind of say to me, and I totally respected what they said too. I've had people say, you know what, I can't deal with you. You and I are not going to be hanging out and making plans together. And I totally got what they were saying, and I totally respected their boundaries, and they would never get a phone call or email or anything from me because I would completely respect someone saying, hey, they're just not my cup of tea. And it, to me, is a really clear way of saying, because I guess part of, it might depend on who you're talking to, but what are you saying when you say, I don't like you? I don't know.
Yeah, it's really not much of a statement, is it? I mean, what do you mean by that? Does it mean that I think you're as bad as Hitler? Or does it mean I just don't want to hang out with you?
Yeah, and if...
It can be anything in between those ranges.
And I think telling somebody, hey, I wish you all good things in life, but friendship chemistry is not working for me. I won't be making plans to spend time with you. I think that's a lot more clear than just to say, I don't like you to somebody.
Yeah, on the other hand, the question I was asked was, how do you say to someone politely, I don't like you?
Oh, that's true. I mean, do they literally want...
I'm answering the question as asked.
Oh, that's a good point. Good point. Maybe they literally want to know how to be able to say to someone, I don't like you.
Yeah.
So, if I was forced into having to say that to somebody, I hope I would just be upfront and say, I don't like you, and this is why. And if I thought they were a dangerous person, I'd make sure we were in a public place surrounded by people before saying, I don't like you. So I suppose if I have to answer that question as asked, how do you tell somebody? Sit them down. Or, well, it depends on the relationship. If there's someone you've spent a lot of time with, and then you just realize, I really don't like this person, go somewhere neutral and tell them to their face, because that's the politest way to do it. If you've had a long relationship and then you just realize, man, this person is they're just too dysfunctional, or they're too narcissistic, or whatever it is that people do that piss you off. And sometimes it takes you a long time to realize that this person that I thought of as my friend, they've never been my friend, and I've only just figured it out. So, I don't know, context can be everything.
It could be, but I've never found someone, just because they're not my friend, that they're necessarily my enemy. So I've never found that to be actually happening. Nobody's been my enemy as such. And I'm 75 years old, so it's not also because lots of them are dead.
Okay, next question. How should I deal with a coworker who doesn't seem to understand workplace etiquette and publicly criticizes people he works with over seemingly trivial things?
Well, I would say I don't remember what I answered to that question. I'll ask you later to repeat to me the answer. But given the question as you have just said it now, I would say ignore him. I see no reason why you have to be worried about other people doing other things to other people. What business is it of yours anyway? Just ignore the person. Always ignore things that you don't like. That's been my policy anyway. I do not pay attention to anything I don't like. If I don't like it, I turn my focus away from it. And that way I live happily ever after.
I have been in somewhat kind of situations like this, because I have a long history of working for bosses and having coworkers. So if you've had multiple jobs, you've run into this situation probably. So my approach was the following: to document, to make sure I'm familiar with the chain of command. Who is my immediate supervisor? Who do I have to answer for? Who is delegated authority? In what circumstances? And for me, being really clear in my head who actually is in charge really helps you get rid of a lot of chaff. Because if a coworker starts being demeaning, insulting, or critical, just let it bounce off your ears, which would be my response a lot of the time. But if they were persistent, and for example, I had a coworker who was constantly running to the supervisor with any little problem they thought they could get me in trouble with. And in that scenario, document carefully everything, and then just, as inevitably will happen, you'll be hauled into the office and you just point blank say all the points, if it comes to needing to preserve your employment. So it can depend on the scenario. The question.
What did I answer? What did I answer originally? My written answer.
Yeah, you might have said something to the effect of, because I didn't happen to write that down, but you might have said something to the effect of, figure out what you're doing wrong and fix it.
Oh, it may be so. Yeah.
Kind of like...
I would change that answer in light of further reflection, because there's nothing that you're doing wrong. The only thing you're doing wrong is thinking that you're doing something wrong. If you think you're doing something wrong, then that's what you're doing wrong.
The only other thing I would add to this is if this coworker happens to be your boss's favorite, because I have been in this situation, start looking for another job immediately, because chances are very high you'll lose your job, because that has happened to me. I got in a tussle with a coworker, and
Really?
yes, we had a disagreement, and I was terminated the next day. So, if the coworker is in with the owner, boss, supervisor, whatever, if they have a very tight relationship, especially if they're like married into the family, anything like that, or maybe your coworker is lovers with the supervisor, lovers with the owner, whatever. Any of those combinations. Basically, if they're way higher than you because of something outside of the merits of the workplace and the merits of actually doing your job, you're in an extremely precarious situation. And really,
in that case,
look for another job. Look for another job. Document everything. Yeah. Document everything carefully.
In that case, you're in the wrong job anyway. So if they terminate you, they're doing you a favor.
It could end up being that. It's a tough situation. But anyway, that's my experience with that kind of stuff. Okay. Next question. Is love supposed to be possessive?
No, of course not. Love is supposed to be just the opposite of possessive. If you love someone, then you're willing to give, not to ask. On the other hand, the question is somewhat ambiguous. Do you intend to love, or do you intend to be loved? If you want to be loved, then you will be possessive, but that puts you in a very vulnerable position, because if the other person doesn't want to love you, then you feel you're left out. So I would say, just seek to love and never seek to be loved. Love anybody, whether they love you back or not. As long as you love them, you'll feel good.
I have a distinction in my mind between being in a relationship where you get to be loved as well and possessive. I see them as completely different things, although I understand why you're equating wanting to be loved with possessive. When I think possessive, because I was in a relationship that was like that, when someone is possessive, it is about control. It is not about love. So they might say the words, the words, I love you, but if they're possessive, it's not love, it's you have to...
It's a desire to control you, yes.
You have to be the way they want, because if you're not, they'll punish you. Yeah, and if you're in that kind of a relationship, get out of it as quickly as you can, because they can become violent. So, yeah. Voice of experience here. If you're with someone who's possessive, you're in the wrong relationship. That's my 2 cents on that. Okay, next question. People always compliment me and tell me that they love my style and my face and everything about me and how handsome I am, but why is it that I can't see how handsome I am? I just feel like total shit all the time. Why am I like this?
Yeah, I think I answered that question, if I'm remembering correctly, that because you don't love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your mind.
Yeah, that was your answer.
That was my answer.
Yes.
And I would repeat that, except I say, to clarify, when I speak of God or any supreme being, I'm referring essentially to that spark of God which is within you. That is to say, your own inner being or soul or spirit or atma or kami or ruh, as they call it in different languages. So if you don't love yourself, then you really can't love others, and others will not feel like loving you. However, the you that you need to love is not the you that you think you are, but the you that you really are. The you are not merely this clump of flesh and bone and blood that you see sitting in front of the mirror. The real you is non-physical. The larger part of you is non-physical. In fact, a larger part of reality is non-physical. It consists of memories and experiences and, most importantly, emotions. And the inner part of you, the inner being, your spirit, is always at the emotional peak of happiness and of loving and of being generous and everything that's positive. Everything else is not your real you. That is simply you cutting yourself from the real you. So if you love the best parts of yourself, then you will love yourself, you will feel self-confident, and others will love you too because they'll recognize that you love yourself. Because that part is basically the spark of God that is within you.
I would add to that, to go to the people in your life, be they friends and or family, those that you trust, those that you believe have your best interests at heart. And if you're in a really bad place psychologically, this can be really tricky to figure out. Because when you're in this state of a bad mind, it could be, is it a consequence of a childhood trauma you've suffered, in which case you might have trouble trying to figure out people's motivations and stuff, because that can be one of the side effects of being traumatized. Or maybe you weren't, but do you have people in your life that you trust, family, friends, that you believe want the best for you? Go to them and just openly tell them exactly how you're feeling, because you're very vulnerable to self-harm when you're feeling like crap all the time and you don't believe in yourself. So you want to be surrounded by people that love you and want the best for you. And they can help you figure out what you need to do to start healing from inside, or to understand why. Great and wonderful answer. I would just add this other stuff too, because sometimes the spiritual journey can be a really long one. It can take a long time to do. So there's some things that maybe this person could do right away to help get them started.
In my experience, that doesn't actually happen, because most people will see you the way you see yourself in front of the mirror, as a vulnerable, feeble clump of flesh and blood and bone, and not someone who is all-powerful, able to control everything in the universe, able to create worlds, able to be as strong as Moses parting the Red Sea, or even stronger. They will not see you that way. No matter how much they love you, they will not see you that way. You have to see yourself that way. You have to see yourself as, when Jesus was being arrested by the Romans, one of his disciples drew a sword. And Jesus told his disciple, "Put away your sword. Don't you think I can pray right now to my dad and he'll send me 12 legions of angels to defend me?" And you've got to understand the overkill that 12 legions of angels would have had in those days, because Julius Caesar, just a few years ago, had conquered all of Gaul with only 2 legions of Romans. So 12 legions of angels in Palestine, there probably weren't 12 legions of Romans in all of Palestine. It would have been overkill. But you've got to feel that confident that you pray to your dad and your dad will send you 12 legions of angels.
As someone who has serious mental health issues, I have PTSD, borderline personality disorder, and these are consequences of being...
This is not you.
Severely bullied. No, I'm just giving a personal perspective, because I'm not a professional. I'm not a life coach. Ardeshir Mehta is a life coach, brilliant man, and he's been doing his thing for most of his life. So this is entirely a personal perspective, which is why I'm prefacing it with, as someone who has mental health issues. One of the things that has helped me is read books. Go to the library, go into the psychology section. The For Dummies books are great. I love those books. It explains things in clear anger. You can get books that talk about depression, anger. You can get books on cognitive therapy. I also personally found counseling really helpful, as well as loving family, loving friends. Actually, Ardeshir Mehta...
Oh, that's a great idea.
Ardeshir Mehta...
My answer should have been, come and see me.
I just want to add, actually, Ardeshir Mehta worked with me intensively for a year, supporting me, helping me. I was even having difficulty composing letters and stuff because I had a brain injury. It was pretty catastrophic. I actually wasn't able to understand people's motivations, and that's a really scary place to be in. And this is why I say, you know, who can you trust in your life? Like, who has your best interest at heart? I don't know how serious it is for you. I don't know how low you are. But yeah, Ardeshir was there for me for a year, supporting me, talking to me. So, and that was such a huge help. I also had counseling. I read books. So I'm a lot better now than I used to be. So I just want to say, you can do this, and you're worth the time, and you're worth the effort, and yeah, it can get better.
I think that is a great idea. Please come and see me. You will find all the details in the in the comments below, and yeah, let's do that. And Molly, it's exactly been about half an hour since we started talking. How long do you want to continue?
Maybe about a half hour is good for the first go around. So I'm going to throw in... I was going to throw in one more question. So we'll make this the last question because a half hour is long enough to get this started.
Okay.
So the last question I'm going to ask you, I didn't see it on Quora. Maybe somebody asked it, but I didn't come across it. What do you think about trans women competing with women in athletic sports? So specifically what I'm asking is trans woman being a male who transitions to female, and woman being born female. So what do you think about trans women competing with women in sports? Do you have any thoughts about that?
I have no objections, if that's what you're asking. I have no objections about women competing with men, and I have no objections about men competing with women either. I have no objection. I do not believe that sports should be the one part of life in which the Equal Rights Amendment doesn't apply. Everyone has equal rights.
Okay, women so everybody compete together.
Men have equal rights. Women have equal rights. Compete? Don't compete? I don't care. It's like saying, you know, what do you think of, I don't know, Africans competing in ice hockey when they don't have any ice in all of Africa, or not much anyway. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's like saying, what do you think of short people competing in basketball? Or tall and or heavy people becoming jockeys? They should become whatever they want to be. And if they can't compete, they can't compete, but at least they gave it a try. I think that's the best way to play your sports, for fun of it, not in order to drag someone else down.
So do you think that we should just like not have male and female sports then? Just let people compete? Like, is that what?
Of course,
let
people compete. Let people compete the way they can compete. If a woman wants to compete in a man's sport, why not let her? If a man wants to compete in a woman's sport, why not let him? Everybody should have equal rights and equal opportunities. Why segregate people by sex when now it's forbidden to segregate people by race or color, by religion or everything else? The only one venue in which segregation is now considered to be okay is sports, which is, I think, rather silly. But as far as I'm concerned, silliness doesn't bother me. If they want to be silly, let them be silly. Let them be silly. I don't really care.
Okay, so let's end it on that then. So
all right. So shall we meet again for another video, and we shall upload
I was
weekly?
thinking we could do this as a weekly thing. So this was Ardeshir Mehta, who's a life. What is it you call yourself? Life coach.
That's right.
life coach at ardeshirmehta.com. Ardeshir, Ardeshir. Last name Mehta, spelled Mehta.
That's right.
Okay, so ardeshirmehta.com. And you can find him on Quora, where lots of people find him very interesting and fun to read. So
yesterday I got 100 requests for answers while I was sleeping.
Wow. So until next week, bye for now, people.